Okay, good evening. Welcome to the third Retail Panchayat. Thank you for joining us today. Our speakers today are Lalit Agarwal, CMD V-Mart Retail Limited, Vineet Gautam, CEO and Country Head Bestsellers India, and Avnish Kumar, MD Neeruz. Between the three of our guests today, we have pretty much the widest intelligence on fashion retail in India, from value to international fashion to high-end luxury ethnic wear. We'll be focusing on building great, resilient retail businesses and creating powerful brand stories. How are they created and nurtured? How do you create stakeholder value? How do you pace growth? How do you choose between consolidation versus chasing new opportunities? In the future, in competition or collaboration, there are always timeless learnings, and I'm sure this will be a very engaging, eye opening discussion. Let me also briefly touch upon the concept of retail panchayat before we begin. India's retail sector employs 46 million of her citizens. A vast majority of them come from middle income and lower income salaried classes from across India. Their livelihoods and future are in immediate danger as retail businesses continue to be deeply damaged by the ongoing COVID 19 and economic crisis. And Images Retail is working closely with Train to support the most vulnerable of our human resources, retail's front end soldiers. Through Retail Panchayat, an industry led intelligence with charity platform, we launched in May 24th, 2020. It is a platform which rides on knowledge to create routes for the financial well being of India's retail employees and their families in these tough times. Let me ask Nagesh to say a few words about this whole initiative and uh, the way forward. Thank you, Nagesh. Please.
Thank you, Amitabh, and namaskaram to everybody, all the participants, as well as all the panelists. And I must thank Amitabh and Images for this initiative of supporting Train in our endeavor to support families of women as well as men who would lose jobs in the retail industry. I must also thank all the angel donors who have come in the last two retail panchayats and the current angel donors as well as the panelists. So our thought at Train was that if industry is going through a struggle, I'm sure our foot soldiers, the people who actually last mile connect with our customers, would face challenges. And this challenge could be not only in modern retail, whether brick and mortar, physical, online, or it could be in restaurants and salons and traditional retail. And the idea was, can we do something? Because whatever we are today is because of them. And hardships will come in because the businesses have to survive for people to survive. But that doesn't mean that we forget about them. So we started off with an objective of 3,000, and we were looking for an anchor donor. I must say JP Morgan came in as the anchor donor. And with that, we said if we can add some more donors so that we can actually collect a fund where we could help 3,000 women who have lost their jobs with the support of 4,000 over a period of 3 months. Let's also support them with enrolling them into various schemes of the government so that whatever government schemes are there, they take benefit of that. This is in partnership with Akdarsha. We started off with this thinking. Amitabh came in, all of you came in. And I'm so happy that as of today, we have collected 1.09 crores, which means that we will be able to support 2,725 families. So from the initial target of 3,000, we are just short of 275. And therefore, we are saying that we will endeavor to do multiple things to see if we can reach our 5,000, which is the extended target. After having got this commitment, last week we opened up. We have not done much publicity. Now we are hoping that all of you who are here would actually spread the word. Okay, and we had 150 odd women who actually applied for it. We have put it across the committee. 42 actually presented them, and we already disbursed 14. And next week onwards, our disbursal start. So I think this program, we started off with just a thought, has taken grounds and has seen its wheels. And this couldn't have happened because without the support of all of you. So great support. I'm looking forward to the conversation today. I'm hoping that all of us will feel very good that although there has been hardship because of our industry, but we have been able to help them in their need and during these times. So Amitabh, over to you. But thank you, everybody.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So great. Let's start with Vineet. Vineet, when I met you with Prashant Agarwal when he launched bestsellers in India, I've been always wanting to ask you, maybe this is the right time to ask you. So he was an Indian entrepreneur, businessman who brought in bestsellers to India. What's the difference between the Indian entrepreneur who was running bestsellers in the initial days to finally the Denmark-based owners, which are now working with you closely? What's the real difference between the Indian entrepreneur and the international entrepreneur? Your voice.
You're on mute.
Sorry. Fantastic question, Amitabh. I think I will answer it in few ways. I think there is a little bit of difference between an Indian. I will say, especially with bestseller, I think why? Because bestseller is a very different organization than any other entrepreneur-run organization or organization that I have seen internationally. I think both of them had the vision of a long-term retail business, and I think that which I don't generally see in a lot of entrepreneurs in India. It's a lot more quick wins, and I think sometimes we forget the brand to achieve some short-term profits or short-term goals. So I think that's why I said there's little difference, because Prashant's vision that time was very still long-term, and he wanted to create a brand that had experience that consumers will be able to associate. So I think from day one for us, it was not chasing a top line or a bottom line goal. It was about establishing the brand right. And I think I say similar things with Anas, who owns Bestseller globally. I think the differences come in how we structure and run the organization. I think globally they will want a professional setup from day one. Okay, they will want structure. I see with local entrepreneurs that sometimes we don't look at the structure. We look at, let's scale up and then put the building blocks. And I think Europeans or other entrepreneurs, they want to put the building blocks. You will want a professional setup from day one. Okay, they will want. Yeah, so they want to put building blocks first and then scale the business up. Both has its own pros and cons. I think the other part I think is that capital, the way we think capital is very different to where capital is thought globally. Also, I think the cost of capital is very, very different both part of the world. I think that's where it could also make difference, because here the cost of capital is still very high compared to cost of capital globally. And the other thing is growth rates. I think that also makes a large difference between how people perceive a 10% growth rate for an European company is fantastic. For an Indian entrepreneur, 10% is almost like growing negatively. And I think the aspirations changes very, very much. So I had a tough time managing two aspirations because I was reporting to the board, which had Prashant and Anas both for quite a while. The other part, which I think is a little bit different, is how we build culture. And I think that's a very different way of doing. Globally, it's still very, I will say, person to person driven. India, we still look at policies and all that stuff to make the organization culture over time. And I think that's a large difference we have both globally and here. From another point, which I think is very, very different, is globally, you still think there is a 5-year plan and you want to chase that up, and then you put milestones for it. I think with an Indian entrepreneur, the plan is changing. The milestones are changing every year. And then especially with Prashant, because his aspirations, it's sometimes gets tough to match, but I think we've learned a lot from him. If you know Prashant, he's always thinking 2 years from now again more. And it's not starting today, it started changing every quarter for him. And I think that was another different way of learning, and I think how to manage that. I think, but end of the day, entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs, and they'll always remain entrepreneur. They will always keep looking at the opportunity, the market size, the market share that we could take, and how do you then ensure that there is return on capital. And I think the return on capital definition also is a little bit varied when you look at an international entrepreneur and an entrepreneur in India. So I think basically it, but end of the day, everyone is an entrepreneur. Everyone wants value. And in India, for a bit, I can also say, if I get out of the Prashant thought process, is valuations in India is very, very important. And I think we have seen this in the last 5-7 years a lot more, because raising capital is only possible if your valuations are right. Otherwise, you have to keep going to the banks. And I think that thought process is not much there globally. There is no valuation pressure coming in. They're really looking at value. EBIT is discussion is far more than EBITDA discussion. So I think those are few differences I see between an entrepreneur now and an Indian entrepreneur.
Great. So Nagesh, our first angel donor is there, but I'll tell Sandeepji just 5-7 minutes more. Let's finish this discussion. What's your thought, Nagesh? You've dealt with a lot of international parent companies who you brought to India. You worked with a lot. What's the real difference?
I would like more or less agree with Vineet, and I think he has captured all the 4-5 points very, very well. And I can tell you one example. It's a strange example, but I must share because it solidifies. You know, when we brought Mothercare into India, okay, the discussion was that in 5 years we'll open 100 stores. Okay, and we had opened 30 stores. By the third year, another Indian entrepreneur went and said that 100 stores, I can open 500 stores. And, you know, out of 500, 300 will be my own stores because I have malls. And Mothercare got carried away with that. And eventually, even that entrepreneur could not open 300 stores and then went to the other. And finally, it is settled with a different company. So I think this is very important. I mean, in India, when you look at growth, you just multiply. Okay, you do not look at capabilities before building capacity. We believe that if we have the capability, our capability will multiply and capacity will come. Okay, I can give you my own example. I mean, we created one of probably the best hypermarket in the world in Hypercity Malad. Okay, but we got so enamored with that we said कि यार मलाड में 1.5 लाख का चला लिया, 200 crore का turnover है, तो जहाँ भी खोलेंगे 1 लाख 1.5 लाख square feet खोलेंगे. And we Amritsar we opened 1 lakh square feet and got heads up and heads down. Yeah, so I think this is very, very important for us. Capabilities and resources have to be built before building a capacity. The second thing is most Indian entrepreneurs do not look at the losses that will happen in the 18 months to be added to the initial capital thinking, and therefore get caught, you know, as soon as you bring in capital and you see in the 18 months your capital has vanished. And whereas internationally, when you look at 5 years, this is a very important. So I think these are two important factors. The part of the culture is very highly driven in India by the leader. Okay, I can assure you that if it was not Vineet and it was somebody else running a bestseller, or whatever Anas would have had his thinking, or Prashant, okay, this bestseller would have been a very different group. So I think you should give credit to the leadership, and therefore sustaining leadership in an Indian ecosystem is very important. Whether you are an owner-driven leader or whether you are an individual professional leader. And therefore, continuity also is very important. Ask Vineet how long has he now worked for bestseller. Okay.
From day one, Vineet.
Yes, and that is important. So what happens is Vineet may be a professional CEO, but for me, he's the owner. Anas is not the owner. Okay, how do you bring leadership which gets ownership? Okay, people think ownership is only when you have ESOPs and shares. No, ownership is when you own up and take up the role of an owner, and that is true, especially if your owner is sitting in Europe and he doesn't come every second day. So I think these are some facts that we need to brought in. They're fabulous. Thank you for reminding me. I made notes of it because it's fantastic.
Mr. Kedia. Hi, Sandeep.
Yeah, he's there.
Hi, good evening.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Fine. Everything is good.
He told me that he's also in the retail business and he's the master franchisee of Miniso, the Japanese brand.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I said, Sandeep, you need to participate in our retail panchayat.
Super business.
So Sandeep has a very interesting background. He's a large wholesaler of mobile phones in Dubai. He's lived in Dubai. He's from Nepal, and amazing background and great businesses he does besides the Miniso business. Yeah, Sandeep, you also run a medical college, yeah?
Yeah, we're setting it up, Amitabh. Okay. It's in these stages. It's a long gestation project. So we took over an existing project and we're working hard towards setting it up.
Great. Thank you for being a part of this year. I formally have to really thank you for donating for this real cause of retail employees and their families. And would you like to say a few words about it?
Sure. You know, I mean, we're first-time retailers, and we got this opportunity with Miniso, about 2 years ago with my childhood friend. He brought about the idea. We'd seen this brand in China and in a lot of countries, even Nepal, where you mentioned, where it was a runaway success. So we approached them about. We've been constantly approaching them, but then they were opening their own stores, and then this opportunity came about where they wanted to franchise it out. So currently we've got 45 stores, and I think being a fast fashion brand, it's a category that everybody admires, and this brand.
So you call Miniso fast fashion brand?
Yeah, it is a fast fashion brand. We that's how it is categorized. We've got a lot of categories that we do, but fast fashion is where we place ourselves.
Okay.
So as about this, so we've got about close to 600 people working for us, and we feel the pain. Like you said, across other industries in the hospital and other businesses also. So a lot of people are losing jobs, and it's very, very trying times. So I think it's very, very important that we should put in our foot forward, and we should support. That's what we're trying to do. That's what we've done a little bit. Whatever we can, in whatever form we can.
Great. Thank you so much. Nagesh, would you like to say a few words?
I want to thank Sandeep, because Miniso is a new entrant 2 years back, but you've done a fantastic job. But thank you for coming and joining hands with all of us here in this little effort that we are doing to see what best we can do. I have a quick question, which is always, how many turns do you do in your store?
So are you talking about, I couldn't quite get the question.
How many times do you turn around your stocks?
Okay. So, we try bringing, stocks come in fresh every week. We get in one delivery. We've got a central warehouse in Delhi. So places around Delhi will get 2 deliveries a week, and outside Delhi, let's say if it is over 200-300 kilometers, we get it once a week. So the whole idea in this brand is about novelty. It's an impulse purchase brand. Every time you come in, you need to have newer and newer things. That's why you buy. It's an experience. You come in and you just buy something or the other new.
Yeah, I think Vineet and Lalitji, all of us have to learn from them how you can turn stocks 26 to 50 times a year. Yeah, amazing turnaround. And when you said fast fashion, it is really fast.
Yeah,
I just have to ask Sandeep one question.
Yeah.
Is this turnover that comes in the newspaper all right? Are they close to
I don't want to get into it. I think you're referring to some article in the Economic Times about 6 or 8 months ago. Somehow I think even the Miniso guys, and we question them that who gave these numbers, so everybody was like, no, we don't know who did it and what not. I think that's the article you're referring to. I think those numbers were not correct. I think
I called a meeting of all my team members and said, figure out how they can reach such a sales square feet. Why can't we reach? No, but it's fantastic business. I must.
Yeah, but the per square foot business that we do is high, but I don't exactly remember the numbers that were published then. But then
800 crores, I can tell you.
Yeah, I think those numbers were not correct at that point of time. I do not know how they came about.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you so much.
I'm very happy that I'm part of this initiative.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Nice meeting you, Sandeep.
Thanks, Sandeep. Thank you, Sandeep.
We'll learn more from you.
Lalitji, coming next to you. Vineet, remind me about that same question. I have something, but I want to first go to Lalitji about this.
Sure.
Lalitji, ye batao that a lot of my friends in the industry and a lot of people who are not from this industry always ask about Vishal Mega Mart, V-Mart. There are one more to V-Mart. So just explain us this whole family chart and this whole V-Mart, this whole chart. Just explain us, then I'll come to V-Mart.
So, Amitabh, hi, first of all, good evening, good afternoon, everyone, and namaskar. So, let me take you to the journey.
Yes.
So my father have our 4 brothers, and we used to live in Calcutta. So from there, 1975, 1976, my father started the first shop, which was a tailor shop and a shooting shop, which was called Vishal. And that was in 1975. And then he moved to Cuttack, Odisha. And I moved along with him because there was some metro construction going in front of the store, that store. And he handed over that store to his brother's sons. And so Ram Agarwal is the son of my uncle. And and then jointly I came back. So during my entire journey, I went to Mumbai. I was working there. I had a printing press there, and I did my MBA from there continuously. So after a decade in 1999, we both together came back, and we thought of starting this Vishal Mega Mart, which actually got conceptualized during that time, and that was our first year of incorporation. So just in front of the first Gariyard Pantaloon store. So that's where we started this brand, and then we took it forward. And
was Sanjay Dhanuka the landlord for that also?
Yes. So they are family friends and very good friends.
Okay.
So and then Pianiji also happened to come there to understand the concept of Big Bazaar was launched from there only. And so we were together till 2003, and then I moved out. And
first Vishal Mega Mart opened in Calcutta. What size was it?
10,000 square feet single store. Yeah.
And a kind of a hyper fashion and
fashion modern store. So just the lines of Shopper Stop. I was inspired in Mumbai from Shopper Stop, Irla, the branch in Delhi, and that was on the top of my mind. I wanted to do something like that. That's what I thought कि वहाँ कुछ नहीं है उसके लिए. And that was the first concept of that kind for an affordable segment. So that was in 1999 itself. So 2003 तक हम लोग साथ में थे. We had 35 stores till that time. And then
Vishal Mega Mart.
I started this V-Mart. V-Mart, it was conceptualized in 2003, 2004.
2003.
And then this journey is continued for the last 17 years.
When you moved away from Vishal Mega Mart and you said you were going to start on your own, how did you decide to get into value fashion and tier 2, tier 3? That you must have done some research. You must have seen how Vishal is doing. What made you think of this thing which now everybody is into? Reliance is getting into it, and Landmark was with us. Vasant was with us, and he's getting into it. Also, tell me, with this kind of competition, what's your view on this market?
So I think it was very evident that the large part of India and the majority India's population could have only bought affordable fashion and affordable pricing, and they used to buy from a very, very small market. And very, very, because I have lived in a tier 3 town called Cuttack in Odisha for my 10 years journey. And I've seen all those kind of, consumer behaviors, those markets, those ability for them to buy and shop. So I had that in my mind that there's a huge opportunity, and there are like 500 such towns or 1,000 such towns in India, which can have such potentiality, which is dense and which is largely populated. And people need that, and people need comfort, and people need a good ambience, and people need a trustworthy retailer to supply them a good product. So I think that is what we saw. And then we opened up the first store in Ahmedabad to test it more because of my Bombay background. I thought Gujaratis were the first one, and Gujaratis are the best giving us the value for money or appreciating the value for money. They would go a long way to get the value for money. So that is why I tried and tested in Ahmedabad first. And when I got a huge success there, then we rolled out in multiple other cities.
How many towns like this, tier 2, tier 3, you've identified?
We are already present in 180 odd towns, and we think that actually the concept can be rolled over to 500 towns, and later on maybe it can go up to 2,000 towns.
So there are 2,000 towns which can afford to have such a format, and with Reliance and Landmark and many more thinking about this format, what's your view on that? Is there enough space in this?
I think still 85% or 80% of the business is coming from unorganized segment, and that is a huge segment. And India's per capita income, the GDP, the youth population is growing and growing, and so their ability to spend more, their aspiration levels, their information levels are going up. So I think the market size is increasing, as well as there is a penetration for organized retail to get into this space by giving more value and more efficiency. So I think there is for everyone, and it's all about. It's more about retailer than the retail itself, because retail is always good and has been good. So it is all about retailer. How do you behave and understand the customer, and how do you create value for them, which is the most important thing.
Nagesh, what should be the per square foot sales like a Bombay, Andheri, or Lalitji? Just tell us some example of a town. What would be a per square foot sale there? How do you compare those, and what's your view on these B and C towns, the opportunity, and what Lalitji is doing, and what Reliance is doing now, Landmark is doing? Vasant told us about this.
I must comment on what he said, that is more about the retailer. Okay, in the last 38, 40 years of my working career and 30 years in Shoppers and retail in India, one thing I have seen is that no retailers has failed because the Indian consumer or Indian ecosystem failed. All retailers have failed because they failed. Okay, it is, and this is where I quote Ravi Raj. I keep telling me, Nagesh, don't trip on your own shoelaces. And honestly, if I look at my own journey, जब भी गड़बड़ हुआ है, सब हम ही लोगों के वजह से गड़बड़ हुआ है. किसी बाहर कस्टमर की वजह से कभी गड़बड़ नहीं हुआ है. और अगले 10 साल 20 साल भी शायद इंडिया में कस्टमर्स की वजह से नहीं होगा. अभी कोविड आ गया, फिर भी देखो कस्टमर्स आना शुरू हो गए. So I think that's one thing that I love the way he said. It is the retailer and not the retailer or the customer. Yeah, I would say apparel is anywhere between 800 to 900 rupees a square foot, depending on location to location. But in a lot of secondary towns and tertiary towns, I keep hearing of 1200 and 1500 rupees per square foot per month. So I would say anywhere between 9,000 to 18,000 rupees would be a variation, depending on the kind of assortment one is keeping. And anything above 9,000 becomes profitable in this country. And especially if the rentals are in the region of 5 to 7% of the, then this becomes a very profitable business.
So obviously rentals would be low, no?
Yeah, he's got on the right format, Amitabh. Very, very right format. And I'm sure as we go, I think there would be much larger opportunity there, because I think the top 10 towns are anyhow getting saturated. For example, Bangalore is a saturated town with 35 to 40 department stores and literally 60-70% assortment being same, and plus online stores of all the brands who are also within the department store. I think the customer is getting over retailed on certain brands. So there is a challenge. So I think the format is fantastic going forward.
No, I agree with Nagesh, and what we also find is, it's all about the density of population is there. It is all about, the customers' average selling price or average buying price is low, and that's what we have to understand. Their understanding or their fashion is little different, and we can't just have that generic international fashion as it is put there. There is some differentiation which has to be created, and there is some differentiation in terms of localization also, which we need to take care. So I think the per square feet sales can be almost similar to a metro town, because the availability of retailer is quite less there. So you have much more ability to sell more there.
Great. Let's go to Avnish next. I think Avnish, your mic is off, and tell us about Neeru's, a little more about. In terms of when you started, your dad started this. I think you took over. When did you take over? How many stores? You've been planning mega stores now, luxury, very expensive clothing. Just tell us the spread of Neeru's in terms of how many stores, what's the category, what price range, and what's your vision for Neeru's?
Am I audible, Amitabh?
Yes.
To begin with, it was a very humble beginning, because we started in 1971, and it was started by my father, Harishji. And at that time, it was one man out of necessity trying to do a lot of things. And based out of Hyderabad, we always had a vision of giving Punjabi suits culture to the Hyderabadis here, because because Hyderabad had a lot of mixed culture, from the local Telugus to the Muslim culture that's over here, and people always saw a lot of Bollywood, and they wanted similar products or designs to be available in this city. So we started off from there. Step by step, we created a good niche in the handloom industry with the wholesale that we did for about 2 decades, and sort of recognized a lot of weavers around the South Indian states like Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Telangana is now, and Kerala, and trying to understand their art and the craft that they used to build in the weaving that they did. And after that, then we got into a hardcore first setup of retailing in the late 90s, in about 1996. is when we set up our first proper retail store in Hyderabad, which actually was one of the most luxurious store at that point of time, about 5,000 square feet of total ethnic retail, from suits, saris, lehengas, kurtis, and everything under the label of ethnic wear. And somehow in those journeys, when we kept moving further, then we opened another store, then another store. That was all in Hyderabad. And then somewhere we realized the value of the word that was revolving in the Western world, which was brand. So, and that was the point when, you're busy in the chain of stores, suddenly you get so inspired by hearing the brands across the world. And the word brand actually hit us real hard for the family and also for my father at that point of time. And then we went deep, we did a huge dipstick about what exactly a brand is all about. And in the late 2000s, when we set up a couple of our stores, people came to us and said, "You're only Hyderabad, you're only in Telangana. Is there something that you can do out of these regions and don't be a regional player, or can you make a brand which is for pan India?" And that is what the space was still empty for any ethnic wear retailer about being pan India, being regional, because ethnic is a very regional oriented subject. When you talk about stores, the ladies are used to shopping for their weddings or festivals from there. वो नुक्कड़ वाली दुकान या वो एक market जो एक हर शहर में होती है, so they are very adaptive to that. For years they have built their loyalty and everything around that one store. But it was always hard for us to invade that space and go to every street in the country and say that they can also be a branded sari, they can also be a branded suit. Unlike a branded denim or a branded cosmetic, you can also buy a brand. So that is when the journey of Neeru's actually took a turning point. And because I joined in about a decade back in 2011, because I was doing my entrepreneurship, the masters in that from London, and seeing so much of Bond Street and Oxford Street and a lot of streets back in London, you're always inspired that if you have the will, the passion, and the capital to do it, why don't we make something in India that is very much talked about? So when we on 12 December 2012, we opened up one of our huge flagship stores in Hyderabad, about 30,000 square feet, and totally luxurious. The store, the interiors, you see the facade. I think we were so driven by the Selfridges and Harrods of the world, and we thought, you can think about it, you read about it, you travel and see, but can you make it? That was the whole point. And we wanted to create that niche, and we somehow succeeded in making a store that looks like that into a street which is today probably one of the best Indian streets. The Jubilee Hills Road number 36 in Hyderabad is a street where you have all the brands. Like I was talking to Vineet about it just a couple of minutes back, and he mentioned about his store being here. So that was the first store on the whole street. So it's all about, Neeru's was all about doing, giving the best, coming out with the most innovative. And in terms of ethnic wear, because we were regarded as one of the most unorganized people in the whole scenario. We see people like Jack and Jones, or we see people like Levi's, and you always get inspired. Can we make this industry organized? Because we are highly unorganized. So to get that,
So what have you done to organize it in the back end?
Everything, beginning from the manufacturing to the ERP setups to what exactly the team can, because nobody heard ethnic being autopilot. Everybody is always being on, meri dukaan hai, mera cash counter hai, chabi band karunga, shutter band karunga, to satisfaction aata hai. That's what ethnic retail or traditional retail is all about in the country. So we tried to, take a leap further, get more hardcore in the backend and in the MIS, and to get every data out that what exactly we are doing everywhere. And then when we started expanding, we went not by the cities, but by the streets. Today, we all travel a lot. So today, probably we know if it's Hyderabad, it's Jubilee Hills, Bangalore, it's Commercial Street, Delhi is Karol Bagh, Bombay is Santa Cruz. So when we travel so much, we narrowed down those locations to see how we can spread our reach, except the malls when you come for high street, because somewhere ethnic is more high street driven.
So you're only at high streets?
No. We are 40% at malls and 60% at high streets. So we have more than about 22 stores now with the malls. So in an overall, we are about 45 EBOs, close to about 3.5 lakh square feet of retail space. And apart from that, we are with the large format stores for our fast fashion category that we do in kurtis and casuals for more than a decade now, for the likes of Centrals, Lifestyle, and Reliance, and etc.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But primarily the Neeru's high street stores are more luxury?
In terms of when you talk about the product range, because if you come to a flagship store, so we have close to about 3 flagship kind of stores, 2 in Hyderabad, 1 in Bombay and Santa Cruz. So from a 30,000 square foot flagship in Hyderabad, we call a 800 square foot, 1,000 square foot flagship in Bombay, because the rentals and everything is so higher back there in Bombay and Santa Cruz. But we wanted to define our presence in the Indian map of fashion with ethnic wear. So if you go to that store, we have a price range, because as at Neeru's, we do everything from 500 to 5 lakh. So, you know, from a kurti to a high-end lehenga, you'll find everything with us. So when we did a Santa Cruz, we know that the average bill values and the ASPs and the ABVs at the store have to be higher to match the rentals. It's not just about the word brand. So there is where now we start with an MRP of 20,000 and go up to a lakh or two. So we have a different, when you say luxury, we are probably a more of bridge to luxury and not really a fast fashion corporate ethnic brand or nor a designer. So we are right in the middle, where people see something in the movie today on a Friday and they want to try it on a Saturday. So Neeru's is that for you at the pocket that you afford. So that's the gap.
Amitabh, if I can ask a question to
please, yeah.
Most of the retailers and which are chain of retail stores are not able to create a large amount of success in ethnic wear, Indian ethnic wear, at least women ethnic wear. So
right.
What tips would you give, and what is that one thing that you are doing so that you are able to really understand all across India the taste of the traditional Indian women, and you are able to manage that through MIS and able to generate those kind of charm and efficiency in your business? If you can give some tips to the retailers like us.
I think we all got camouflaged with the word ethnic. So a lot of people are like-minded friends in the corporate ethnic fashion who do fast fashion. Somebody like Biba or W or Global Desi. There's one part of story like that. And the others are hardcore ethnic retailers, where we do some things like the product categories of sari, suits, lehengas, everything that you require for a festival or for a wedding. So when you match both, I think a lot of things ends to a mathematic, like how Vineet said, jo desi retailer hota hai, jo entrepreneur hota hai, there's a lot of zeal and josh with us. There's a lot of passion, but somewhere we miss the model. So when you talk about only fast fashion, the GPs that we arrive, the margins that we have are very well matching to the product. But when you talk about saris or suits or lehengas, yeah, so traditional wear, that doesn't have that kind of a margin unless you have a great manufacturing and the product acumen. The IP has to be really strong when you're doing that, because when you talk about ethnic, we go to a place like Kanjivaram to get a weaving sari, we go to a place like Ahmedabad to get cottons, we go to Calcutta for embroideries, we go to China of India, which is Surat, to get the price points. So it's so diverse. So getting everything on a single page, you need to have your model right and then work on what margins you can work out, because today the markdowns are huge. People are talking about discounting and various kind of end of season sales and twice a year, thrice a year.
Just a follow up. We learned that India is very different and very different territories, and Indian traditions are very different. So as a traditional wear, do you find very differentiated taste and the wearing pattern, or is there a similarity in that? Sari or lehenga suit or and all those stuff. And how are you able to manage that? Because that's the biggest challenge which normally the retailer face. I mean, we also keep lehenga and saris, but we are not able to do that kind of business.
Correct. Well, like I said, this whole business is all about the IP. If you have your IP and art and craft right, because you may have a machine, but you don't have the art. Because we always talk in our company that the whole business of retail is art versus machine. If you only go by machine, you say today you have lots of money, you want to start an Indian brand and you spend a lot of money in the stores, interiors, wo aap kar paoge. But when you talk about the subject, which is the merchandise, you need a huge acumen to understand what ethnic is all about. I'm sure a lady in North in Delhi has a different taste to a lady compared to who's sitting in Chennai. So you need to have that body sizing, the kind of merchandise taste that they require. You cannot uniform it. So 60% of your store can be regular, but 40% has to be as per the city that you go to.
Yeah. Which is a very tough business to do. That means, how do you...
Lalit, time for a JV with Neeru's.
Manish, what's your view on this Indian wear, ethnic wear, this 5 lakhs to 5,000 kind of product, scale, what Avnish is talking about?
See, there's a lot of one thing I just want to pitch in. People talk about luxury. So I think today the millennials who are there, they actually don't treat ethnic fashion as the fashion of their college or their university or their workplace. To get that in their minds, the millennials, we had to at Neeru start very progressively the fast fashion format, which was the kurtis, or those fast fashion kurtis that we do, which is fusion wear that we do at the LFS as well. So to get them start wearing ethnic at the age of say 20 or 22, and to to cater to their wedding day, and also to cater to their mother, their daughter-in-law, and everybody. So you have to bring in the ethnicity in the deep rooted to those customers that you're catering to. So if you ask them to wear a denim, I'm not saying don't wear a Jack and Jones, but appreciate wearing a ethnic kurti. It's not passe, it's not a 10,000 rupee dollar sari will still be luxury. You can't just expect that a brand that makes a luxury product, you can also have a luxury sari on your wardrobe. It's not just about the handbag or a particular brand's dress that you have. This can get extinct. The saris that we make, the weavings that we do, even a lakh rupee Kanjivaram sari can go extinct. So there's a lot of things when you talk about the merchandising bit at ethnic wear. But somewhere the uniformity has to be the brand, the mix of the things that you have. That is what we have to play with. That's the role of the IP of the product.
Sure.
Yeah.
Amitabh.
Yes, sir.
Some very interesting thing I captured what Avnish said and what Sanjeev Mohanty had said last time. And somebody on the chat has commented to say one thing he sees common amongst all panelists is the passion. And I'm seeing Avnish is also almost like he's coming out of the screen. Yeah, so passionate about what he's talking. But so same thing we saw in Mr. Mohanty also. But look at what two things I saw. One is both of them are talking of longevity of the product, okay, which is not fast fashion. Okay, means you are saying it is heritage. Okay, you are saying somebody has a 120-year-old jean which he bought for 25 cents or something, which is worth maybe $2,500, and here is somebody who's talking of saying it may get extinct. Okay, I think that deep-rooted belongingness to the product is something that you don't see in the modern businesses where you bring things in hundreds and thousands, and you're only talking of order quantities, and we gave a run of 20,000 pieces. I think these are two very different kinds of thinkers who are building this. So it's a fantastic. I mean, the question that I would leave for all the panelists is, how do you build passion when you hire somebody, or how do you find a passionate person to hire?
Actually, I want to ask Vineet this question in a different way, because Vineet, you used to work with Sanjeev Mohanty.
Yes, I have worked with Sanjeev in Benetton. We have for 2 years.
2 years, yes. And I want to ask you, because Nagesh, you remember we asked Sanjeev this question about fashion. So I remember when Jack and Jones was launched, Prashant used to tell me, you have to try our jeans and go and buy it. And I went to the store, it was 8,000 rupees. And I'm talking about 10 years back. And that one jean, nice product, but it was 8,000 rupees. Now what are you selling at? So I saw finally the prices came down, and 4,000 now, 3,000 or 4,000 rupees. So I asked this question to your ex-colleague in Benetton, Sanjeev, and he replied it very nicely, which is about fashion is supposed to mean that it is adapted by many people. And the soul of fashion is it changes very fast. So fashion should not be expensive. This could also apply to Avnish. Maybe you could also interpret and tell us what you think about this thought. So why did the 7,000 jeans become a 3,000 jeans? Was that the thought? Why was it 7,000 on when Jack and Jones was launched? And what do you think of this thought? Fashion adapted by many, changes very fast. Should it be expensive? Should it not be expensive?
So fortunately, I was part of listening what Sanjeev said and what Vasant also said. And I think I agree a large part to what Sanjeev and others said was that, see, this is not about price. It is about value for money. and value for money is different for different consumers you're addressing. So a customer set that I was addressing when Jack and Jones initially came in was a very different consumer who understood Italian fabric, Italian stitching, product made in those factories, and those factories are expensive. Okay, well, and that time the brand was what, five stores, key markets. The early adapters were taking it up, and they were able to understand the value of the product. As you keep going down and expanding in the country, and the biggest challenge in our country is that the more you want to go further, the price becomes a larger challenge to address. And obviously, the product lines have to change. If I have to have the same product line, I would have been 100 crore brand, and there are many 100 crore brands few companies have in this country, but they cannot be scaled. And for us, Jack and Jones, Bermuda are only globally or in India. We are a value fashion brand. Okay, now you can say value is 800, but that's for the customer whom you are talking about. And there's a customer at 2,000 for whom it is value. There's a customer at 8,000 for whom there's a value. So value will keep changing. And I think all brands have a journey depending on where you want to reach. And our journey, we were very, very clear with the journey we wanted to make. We want to be the 1,000 crore international brand. And I think had COVID not been, it would have been this year. But it has been pushed by a few months or quarters. But I think the journey in which we are chasing now, we are now in 100 cities in the country, obviously. So obviously the price perception changes, the product perception changes, and you have to have different needs and different requirements of consumers, and value for money changes. So it's not that today also I don't have a 8,000 rupee denim. I also still have an 18,000 rupee denim in Jack and Jones, but that will now go to the top 5 stores. But a 3,000 rupee denim is across available in almost stores. So if I have 50 denims in the store, only 5 are on price points 8,000 above or 10, and rest of them are this. So the price perception is changing as the consumer you adapt, and as the brand starts to become a lot more inclusive. And I am not saying adaptable, inclusive. I think the price elasticity has to improve. And I think we now start denims from 24.99, and we go down about 18,000 rupees in the same. And there's different value for customer. A Linking Road store does not require a 24.99 denim, or a Palladium store does not require a denim of 24.99. But there is a store in Siliguri, maybe in Haldwani, which definitely requires a store denim starting at 24.99, because for that customer, the value is very different. There are customers who will buy 7,000, also 8,000, but 18,000 is one piece, maybe in a quarter I will sell. So I don't want to have that product available. And I think Avnish also said it rightly. He starts from 500, goes to 5 lakh. So does not mean that it's the same customer. It's a different customer, different part of their journey, and different part of their life cycle adaptation of fashion. And I think fashion cannot be defined. And I think it is a tough one. We all try to keep defining fashion. Fashion is what I like. And I think it is so much personal to me, and people call it, and yes, there are trends that people will adapt to, but fashion is so much personal to my taste, to your taste, and that's where I think someone just said that Miniso is fast fashion, right? Now it's purely because he's selling a category which is currently fashionable. Okay, and it does not need to be garments itself, and there's value there, and there are people selling the same product at maybe 5,000 rupees, and there will be a taker for that customer also. So the value keeps changing, and I think the consumer also changes, and I think brands have to find the journey and define the journey right. If we want to be the 5,000 crore brand in this country, 5,000 crore someday, our journey is going to be very, very different to where we are today.
So before I go to the next guest who's come, our angel donor, just tell me one small answer, Vineet. What's the opportunity of Jack and Jones in India? What have you estimated? Next 5 years, 7 years? Size.
Next 5 years, I think from where we are, we should be 3,000 crores.
Okay, great. That's a good number to be. So $1 billion mein time lagega.
I will not like to be the Indian entrepreneur. I will not like to be the European entrepreneur. So I'm saying 3,000 crores is where we could reach. If I put it to an Indian entrepreneur, then I don't know where we land up.
Great. Just before I come back to you guys, Jitender Joshi from Ambab CEO is with us. He's also our angel donor. Jitender, welcome to the Retail Panchayat, and thank you for your contribution, and thank you for supporting this cause.
you, Amitabh. Thank you, Nagesh, and thank you including me into the noble cause. I think we are working with retail for last 10 years, so it is our duty to ensure that as a solution provider who has given so much, the retail has given so much for last 10 years to us. Somehow we can give back to the community in our own way. And that's the great, very, very humiliating start you have started, and we like to be part of it. So AMBAB is into a consumer internet solution
No,
provider.
let me tell Nagesh. Nagesh, your train circle is built by AMBAB. So they are contributing to this.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I didn't want to say that. I thought I'll catch the right opportunity and say that.
Sure.
So thank you again, Amitabh. Thank you so much for making us part of it. And anything required from the solution part of side, we'll be more than happy to contribute in that part.
Great.
Thank you, Raj.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jitender, for coming on board, and thanks for contributing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Can I pitch in for can I take it from what Vineet said?
Yeah, that's we want to, that's a very interesting.
Because I'm one of the Desi brands around, so probably one small example that I wanted to put in when he compared a product of 25,000 or 20,000 denim with a 4,000 denim. Just a small example with Neeru's. We've got a brand ambassador who endorses the brand, and one of the epitome of fashion in the country. For example, right now we have Sonam Kapoor on board as a fashion brand, and we take social media as a big example for the millennials and all kind of marketing. So when we make the photo shoot, and when we know that we are going to make that sari, make Sonam wear that sari, so we take the shot, the pictures put up on Instagram. And that sari actually costs, maybe original Kanjivaram sari may cost close to about 80,000 or 1 lakh. But the brand has the capacity to make the same sari and the same look feel even in a power loom for about 12,000 or 13,000. So the customer, and at Neeru's, we make 4 versions of what we shoot. So we may have a 80,000 Kanjivaram, same way we may have a 40,000. We may also have a 25,000, and then we have a 12,000. So probably the first 80,000 we sell, like Vineet said, we sell 2 or 3 pieces in a quarter, and parallelly to 50,000 that we sell close to about, say, 60 pieces in a quarter. And when you talk about the 12,000, we sell not less than 1,000 to 2,000 pieces in a quarter. So that's one is the capacity of the brand to make the same product which they see on the screen on their fashion idol affordable to them. And second is also make a sari which for their wedding day, they can actually afford a 80,000 product. So it's the brand's responsibility that if you're showing something to them, are you also matching their pocket? That is value today. That gap is what retailers have to identify. I mean, fashion apparel retailers, and then we have to cater to that kind of market. Sorry if I'm just away from the topic, but I thought this can.
Amitabh, there is a beautiful word he has come out with: brand's responsibility to customer, which I think is a very amazing statement. We have never talked about a brand's responsibility to customer. Excellent.
Great. So let's continue this discussion. Let me just call Mr. Gopalakrishnan with us. He's with us. He's our angel donor. Sir, could you please come online? Nagesh, you know Mr. Gopalakrishnan.
Yes. I know him from the Nilgiri days, and we've known each other for very, very long. A very passionate food retailer. Very passionate food retailer.
Yes. So Gopalakrishnan, are you there?
I'm here. How do I come online? I'm just checking on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
tell me, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your contribution to this cause, and thank you for supporting us in this initiative.
You're welcome.
We would like you to say a few words about your journey and your thoughts on retail and post-COVID retail.
Well, there's nothing about the journey has been from 1905 for the family.
Okay.
And I started off after the sale of Nilgiris. And now...
why did you sell Nilgiris?
That's a question my family is not able to explain. Because the second generation, which my dad and uncle, it's a joint family. And then I was against the sale totally. But then they decided the fourth generation may not be interested in this, and there could be I said we are well established and we shouldn't be worried about that. But then they said, no, it's better each one. And there was an opportunity for us to divide all the businesses individually to each one. But then something went wrong and they decided then whatever I got out of that business, I started again. I told my dad and uncle, I'm going to start again from scratch. And
So
that's how I started.
A food grocery business again?
Yeah, I'm still doing that. And I'm, as a fact, another 1 year, I'll probably a competitor to Nilgiris itself.
Great. Nagesh, would you like to say something?
I just want to say thank you, Gopal, for coming and being supportive. And every time I've met you, we've always spoken about our people, our employees, our colleagues, and the way you're building your new supermarket. But I think that basic Indianness remains, and the basic core, starting with the milk product, still remains. Yeah,
right.
It's amazing as to what. Okay, it's never about how big the chain is, but it's all about how good the chain is for the customer.
Yeah, that's one for the customers. Main second thing, how good are the employees who are working for me? How good they are taking care. Today, if this corona has made me not going to my factory, which is 83 kilometers from Bangalore. And the entire village people of 50 are running the show without my presence. And that's an achievement. I feel I'm happy about it. The small village who were masons and all, I got them to do bakery now and provision packaging and all that. And I'm very happy they are able to run it on their own and just communicate to me over telephone. That's a wonderful thing.
Great, sir.
Excellent.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Nagesh, let's continue with that discussion we were having, which you said, how do we build passion within the organization? Lalitji, would you like to, you scaled up a lot. I'm sure without passion, without really getting the team passionate about it, you can't achieve all this.
And he has a CEO now, and he has a very, very formal board. Okay, so he has moved away from family and majority shareholder management. He's got people. So he must be really experiencing this thing, building a passionate business.
Tell us, sir, kaise kar rahe ho?
And tell us the challenges also, sir.
Yes.
I think, for an entrepreneur-driven organization, and the entrepreneur's passion, as Avnish said and as Vineet said, the entrepreneur's passion is very, very difficult to get replicated. And at times it becomes much more difficult for the entrepreneur to create that passion in professionals. And then the organization where you can generate similar passion which you have, and this is what you want to replicate. So my journey also happened the same way, because it was all the decision was center of control was me, and I used to take all the decisions. But gradually I felt, as I said earlier also, the problem is more about with retailers, not with retail. So retail has tremendous capabilities, and retail has tremendous potentiality. And it's all about how do you expand yourself internally in the organization? How do you create team? How do you create people? How do you create process? And how do you create technology which can drive all these potentiality which is around you, which is the business, which is the money in the air, which you need to capture. So I thought, that's what I did. And for the last 7 years, I've been driving this, trying to understand that, and then how do you create an organization? And because creating an organization, bolna bahut aasan hai, log kar bhi lete hain, but passionate organization is something which you wanted, and where it is very difficult, because normally what happens is whenever you want to delegate, and you have to delegate, because when you want to form a team, you have to delegate. And when you delegate and you don't, you delegate and you allow people to take decisions. And when people start taking decisions, they can't immediately match an entrepreneur, and they can't immediately match an owner. So their decision-making skills will somewhere be not as good as what you have. So there comes the problem. And the entrepreneur is so agile and cannot bear the losses, whatever it is, and he steps in and he comes in and tries to help the professional or mark the professional, saying कि boss तू ऐसा ठीक नहीं कर रहा है, इसको ऐसा कर, ऐसा नहीं करते, ऐसा कर. And that is the point. मैं बोलता हूँ वो विक्रम और बेताल का story है, because whenever you speak, the professional goes away and he says कि यार boss तू भी कर लो. And for every decision, the professional may come back to you and ask for it. So it's all about, how much grit and how much perseverance do you have in taking those losses and in taking those time, where you can allow that time to the professional, where he will take decisions. He will not take a right decision. He may take a substandard or diluted decision, which according to you, not necessary, but according to you, and you will have to live with it. And you have to allow him to fall down like a child, and you have to allow him to fall down, and he should learn to walk by hurting himself at times. So that's what patience as a parent we need to have. कि वो बच्चा गिरेगा और गिरेगा, वो जख्म लगेगी, हमें भी दर्द होगा, वो दर्द को हम सहना जानना होगा हमें. We need to know about it. So I think that's the journey, and that develops passion, and that is where you generate passion, and you have to unconditionally love them. You have to show them you care for them, and they need to feel that you do care for them, and that they are important to me. So I think that's a relationship, and it's all about relationship which you or every junior and every senior develops, or every professional team develops, and that's how you are able to generate passion in every individual, because you all are connected, and the more connected that you form and more love that you show. I mean, family में क्या होता है, भाई भाई को प्यार करता है, भाई भाई को trust करता है, and trust is the biggest the biggest pillar of how you work as a family. And similarly, if you can have the similar amount of trust in your organization, within your team, because retail is not a single man's game. It's a soccer game. It's a soccer match where one player performing, one Messi performing will not let the team win the game. So it's all about the team, and it's all about the team spirit, the team's culture, and the team's trust on each other, which is more important. So that will only come when they have ownership and when they drive passion, that it is my own business, not that I'm working for someone. I think that's
very well said. Very well said, Lalitji. बहुत बढ़िया बताया. Vineet, what's your thought on this? You built a very passionate team. You built a very strong team. I talk to a lot of people who are your vendors or your landlords. They say, oh, Vineet will take the right decision and his team will take the right decision. What have you done?
I think I largely agree to what Lalitji has said. I think the entrepreneur needs to first figure out that what is he looking for in a professional. I think the boundaries needs to be defined, and he's right, mistakes will be made, and you have to if you start jumping around on every mistake, then it's game over. Either the entrepreneur is going to go, or everything is going to come to your desk. I think the better thing is, and I've learned this with working with two now, is that you don't tell him what to do then. I think it's much better that he learns, and then you sit down and then speak about it in a way where you could help him take a better decision for next time. I think the other part is, I think, again, I'll say again, the structure needs to be defined very clearly. Where does my powers end and where does his start? And I think if you have, like what he's saying, he's created a professional board, I think that's so much important, because otherwise, as an entrepreneur, you will keep jumping, because at the end of the day, there's X amount of sustainability on losing money, right? And the board is a much better, because then your passion is only not getting addressed. And every time when we take a decision, I think we think our decision is the best, because we have the last person to take a decision, and we are fine if we make a loss. But if someone else comes in, that's the way challenge starts. And I think I will come to the team part in a minute, but I think this is what we started at day one. We had a bestseller values globally, and then we had an Indian entrepreneur, and he said, what do bestseller India stand for? And I think we had fair bit of few people who came together, and then we brainstormed. And I think we also found many alike people who were young, wanted to do something. They were not at the CEOs or the heads of department. They wanted to prove themselves, and we wanted to prove ourselves as an organization. I think if you find similar people who want a similar journey, then it makes a life a little easier. And we came with three things which defines our culture, and it defines everything we do. We hire for it, we train for it, we fire people also for it. And there are three values which you can say maybe they are passion. It's called own, dare, and deliver. You need to own it, you need to dare for it, and then you need to go and deliver it. And yes, people will make mistakes. And I keep saying this to my team, you can make the same mistake twice. But if the third time you make the same mistake, then you're not learning and you're a fool. Because you will make mistakes, and we cannot clamp down on mistakes. This is bound to happen. We are in a retail journey. As I said, we have 300 stores, different part of the country. Someone has to take a decision because the customer is right in front of him or her. If I am not going to allow this own day deliver to him, he is going to do something. And I can give you an example. There was a guy who, a customer wanted the same thing in a shorts, which we had done him for. He converted it into a shorts. Now, I could fire that guy also. On one side, it was integrated. The other side, saying it was passion and owning and daring and delivering. Customer was happy. But then you have to go back and say, guys, this is not what we want. This is not. But I think if you hit the guy and you fire him for it, life gets ended there. And I think what we've been able to do in the last 10 years is, and that's why I think a lot of people don't need to come to me anymore in these days, is a team which is as passionate, maybe sometimes more passionate than me. And I think we as entrepreneurs or professionals need to understand that the guy I'm hiring is a specialist in that. And I can never beat him. I can show him a direction. I can help him take a better decision, but I am not better at finance. I am not better at supply chain or an IT or a product. And I think that's where sometimes professionals and entrepreneurs make the mistake, is they get into everything. He is the person who's deciding product also, buying also, IT mein banna kya hai, wo bhi decide kar raha hai. And I think that's where, if you define that, people enjoy that. And that's why a critical part of my team has been, we have been having them for about 10 years. Lalit ji knows someone who's been my team for now 6.5 years. My head of sales for 9 years in the organization, Sumit, who heads of business development 10.5 years. I think I can count many people. We actually celebrate people who complete 10 years in the organization. And every month we have someone completing 10 years in the organization. And I think they have stayed here because they got that independence and the freedom to do things. And if, yes, sometimes they will find me very autocratic, but sometimes you have to hit it hard and say, no, this is the end for it. We will have to shelve it, because beyond this, it's going to bleed too much. But we need to realize, out of 10 times, how many times are we doing it? If we are doing it 8 times, good luck to you. This passionate organization is never going to get built again. You lost the plot. But if you're doing it twice and then trying to help that person in 6 out of 10 times, then I think you will find people similarly. I know sometimes I hired a trainer who said, finding similar people in the organization is a very big challenge, because everyone talks the same language, everyone has the same thought process. There is no other thought process that is coming into the organization. I said, if it's working for me, then I think it's okay for me to do it. The day I realized that, no, this is counterproductive, I think that's the way we should change. But I think a lot of people change for the sake of changing. Naya culture chahiye, 10 saal ho gaya. I have also told by a lot of people in my team, so 10 years, while the company is changing, people are changing. He said, no, but we are the same company. We still sometimes think we are a startup. What have we achieved? We've achieved 1,500, 1,600 crores in this country. It's nothing from the scope in which we can do. So I think, as I said, maybe I'm sounding like an entrepreneur, but I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a professional who's running this business, but I treat it as my business.
That's where you bring in passion, and that's how you feel, and that's what is real you. So that is all passion is described as.
So I think we have to find people around us who are similar to us, who will understand what we are speaking. And and you can't find all 10 people or 100 people like you always. It's going to be very, very tough then. But,
Great.
So it's a learning for me.
Nagesh sir Nagesh is smiling, so I like to hear what Nagesh is wanting to say.
No, I love the discussions and very interesting. And as some more thoughts come to me, words like let go, what Lalitji said is fantastic. But as an entrepreneur, when you bring in professionals, you also need to be available to the professional, because you can't be only there when you want to control. Okay, you have to be available because he requires a bouncing board. So I think that makes a lot of difference. The second thing I wanted to say was this whole professional and entrepreneur is not a right kind of a comparison. Okay, because you may call me a professional, but I was the one who started Shoppers, and I was not an owner of the company. So to me, an entrepreneur could be entrepreneur as an individual. Just because he doesn't have an ownership does not become that he is a professional entrepreneur. Or and there are enough entrepreneurs who are more professionally qualified than many of us sitting around here. So to me, it is just the ownership part of it. And the ownership are just two ownership by share and ownership of brand. I'm saying to anybody, if you're able to bring the ownership of brand, okay, I think it works as beautifully. You don't have to be an ownership by shares. And I think that's what I learned from the Raheja family a lot. I mean, it's 30 years. Okay, I mean, every month, without a fail for 30 years, the monthly review happens where all the 3 family members sit together. Okay, but you are accountable for the business. So when you say responsibility, Sadhguru says it is the ability to respond. So when you're given somebody responsibility, you are giving him the ability to respond to situations. And if you're giving him the ability to respond to situations, then he himself is accountable. You don't have to make him accountable. So this is a very beautiful discussion. Amitabh, we could have a session only on this. Okay, but what I love, and somebody has commented, I think it's really that. It is the ability to let go. And there's another one I was listening to Amira Shah when she was there in one of the sessions, and she said one thing very beautifully. We said, what is the one mistake you have done? She said, I should have got the professional much earlier in my journey. Okay. So we said, why? She said, see, as an entrepreneur or a startup person, I have the ability to do certain things which they don't have. Okay. And some things that they have, I don't have. So if I had brought them earlier, then I could have done many more things. So today, if Lalitji has got a full set of people who are supporting him and as capable, suddenly he gets relieved. And look at what he can think of 2,000 towns. But a CEO who joins a 180 town store, okay, for him to start thinking of a 2,000 town will take some more time because he first has to manage the 180 and open the 181st, 182nd, 183rd. So that's what entrepreneurs or whoever is at the helm, I would call it as leader. I wouldn't want to call it as entrepreneur professional, has to understand that when his time gets released, the ability for him to do things larger opens up. But if you keep going down and doing small things, then there will be the thinking. I think that's the big difference that happens when you let go. And Lalit and all of us who are sitting around here, or for example, Avnish, the way he has taken over from his earlier generation under whatever circumstances, and so passionately talking about it. I mean, he is a professional, a qualified professional. I mean, you're calling him an entrepreneur because he happens to be from the family. Okay, but he could be tomorrow running something as big as Neeru's anywhere else. So I love the discussion, but the words are fantastic, which have actually come out today. Lots of learning for me.
So, Avnish, what's your thought? You had something to say. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, because we are more than a 3-decade-old brand, and the kind of pool of talent that we have and the number of people that we have with the company right now. So like how Vineet said, you celebrate 10 years. So I think we had celebrated 10 years back. So we have so many people who have given the blood and sweat to the brand. But I have learned a lot with each point from Lalitji, Vineet and Nageshji. Reason because we are a brand now trying to increase our footprint. And like I said, to become organized for an unorganized sector, not as a company, but from an unorganized sector, to take everybody with you is a huge challenge. So there are a lot of problems as a traditional retailer that we feel that professionals coming in, there might be a lot of difference of opinions when they try to overtake certain things. But as an entrepreneur and as a second generation to the brand, we have somehow tried to bridge the gap and gotten a pool of talent, and the number of people who have come on board in the past 3 to 4 years in the brand has made a lot of difference. And trust me and my father, when we used to speak, we used to say, अगर दोनों भी एक ही प्रोडक्ट, अगर हम सब दोनों एक्सपेंशन में लगे रहेंगे, तो प्रोडक्ट का ख्याल कौन रखेगा? Our main is the IP. It's the merchandise that we have to take care for. You can have people to do the turnkey projects for the stores that you're opening. You can have operations team who can run that. But these kind of terminologies were very new for us back then, about 6-7 years back, because we always felt we can do everything. We always took as you and me, 1 and 1 is 11. We are not 2. But somewhere then when we realize that we need professional in the company and we need to make it into an autopilot and then take care of things which are much more important, like Mr. Nagesh said, that if I have somebody taking care of the stores that we have today, if I work harder on my merchandise, trust me, with the merchandise knowledge, we can make Neeru's a #1 fashion brand, not just an ethnic brand, because there's so much to learn every day. And that is what makes the brand. You may open best stores, you may put best marketing, you may get best brand ambassadors, you can get good locations, everything is there. Customer will come back to you only if you have the right product. You cannot beat the product. You can buy everything, but you cannot buy the product, the IP of the product. That strength has to be with the person who's there as a leader, like he said, not as an entrepreneur or a CEO or a COO or a CFO who's taking decisions. It's with the leader of the company, and that's the essence of the company. So I think I have a lot of to take back from this call from you guys, and it will help me, you know, filter out my traditional journey to a right now almost onto a very professional journey to a fuller professional journey. So thanks to you guys for giving me that input here.
Nagesh, you remember we were talking last time about we should ask our panelists about who's their mentor, who do they go to when they have to take advice. Let's do that. Let's ask Vineet. Vineet, who do you go to when you have to, in this, what did you do? Or generally in life, who do you go to for advice to discuss what should I do next?
So I don't know if it's going to sound very cliche. I don't have a mentor. So that I can say that, but I think I have very good friends and people who have vast experiences, and I think I have reached to different people. That time I've even called Nagesh, so for something. But I think different situations will put you in different places and different challenges, and then I think you'll have to find people. I called you yesterday, Amitabh, for something else. You could treat yourself as a mentor that time, and I think it's a challenging because one is I liked what Nagesh said, that you need a sounding board. Unfortunately, or fortunately, for the 10 years, I've not had one. Since we took over bestseller, I now report to Anas, who actually has about 42 people reporting to him. The window you get is maybe 15 minutes in a month, and you are on your own every day. And I think what I've done is now that I have created a small internal sounding board. And every decision which we want to take, which is large, we discuss, we deliberate. There are very few decisions that I take on my own, unless it's very, very strategic or it's something which is getting discussed with Denmark. Majority of the decisions, there's a team of 5 people or 6 people we have actually now, who've been with the bestseller for about 7-8 years. They understand the business as good or maybe better than me. And I think we talk amongst ourselves a lot more openly. And unless we all agree, we don't take that decision. And I think and no one else can guide your business so better than people internally. I think a lot of time we forget to pick an internal board. We all get external boards, and I think people internally have so much understanding. I'll tell you, I do a town hall every quarter with my teams now on Zoom and other. People have brilliant ideas, brilliant thought processes. We just had an annual conference before we were shut down for COVID, and we asked people to come back with ideas, and I'm going to fund it like an entrepreneur. So we did it almost like a Shark Tank. We had 47 ideas in the company. Each idea, the simple thing was, it needs to be scalable to 100 crore business. And you find internal, and I think we don't need to go outside. I'm not a big fan of a lot of consultants, and unless we read it very badly. But there is so much talent in the organization, so much understanding of the core business of ours that I think we don't need to. So we have an internal board. We have a sounding board. We chat a lot. We discuss a lot. Lot stained because of WhatsApp. You can actually do it in a minute. You don't need to meet personally. But the idea is to talk among ourselves. And sometime when we get stuck, sometime when we need advice, we call upon people. We have called, I think, many people in the industry for help. And I think that is what I think it's worked for me.
Just before I move on, you've also worked in restaurants, food service business, then you worked in telecom. What are the overall learnings across sectors which are common to fashion, which could help the fashion business?
I think every business teaches you something. And I think food taught me how to manage every little expense, how to manage very strong operations, because in restaurants, one mistake can cost you so severely. So I think it taught me that very much. I think when I went to telecom, the key thing which I learned there was scale. How could you scale? Because it's a business of scales. So I went about 40 stores. When I left, I was managing 5,000 stores, and this journey was about 5 years. It converted, and I think that scale was so much different. How do you put processes, replicate? How do you think through the structures? And I think that helped a lot. And I think fashion. I think I keep saying this. Fashion is passion. I think every day you need to be passionate about it. Especially in fast fashion, the product is getting killed every day. So your idea on product today is not valid tomorrow morning. Unlike a food where you have to invent the menu once and then you have to re-look at it after several years. In telecom, it's also the end of the day, you're just changing a little bit on the product side. Everything core remains same. In our business, fashion especially, it changes rapidly. And then you need to look at the entire supply chain. You need to look at how you market it. And then you have to yourself killing the product, even if it is selling well sometimes. Because if I repeat it this time, I am definitely going to get doomed. And I think the point, it's very important to remember in fashion, when is the point to kill the product? Because that after that, I don't know, and everyone will have to learn it by making mistakes. You need to find that line by which you're saying, I will not sell the next 500 t-shirts or this shirt. I have to bring a new product because that's what, but it's different for different fashion companies. So I think fashion teaches you passion, day to day, fighting for new product line, new thought processes. Currently mask is a big trend, and we are not a company which sells masks otherwise, but we are working. I can tell you that in next 20 days, you will see the mask which others might not have been thinking about. But it's just a temporary phase, and it has to be killed someday and move ahead.
Sure. Lalitji, what about you? Mentor? Who do you go for advice?
As I said, last 7 years back, actually hired a coach. I had a coach for myself. I had him 3 years, who actually holded me accountable for my actions and my behaviors, and which made me teach all these things on how to handle team and how to generate people. And
a professional coach. You're talking about a
professional coach. And then I still feel that learning has to be a continuous journey, and one has to keep learning because we did not get educated for this size of business that we are doing. We did not get educated for this side, this way the business is being grown. So I think we have to keep learning tap open every time. So I recently joined a Harvard OPM program where I'm trying to get a formal education done for myself. And I keep meeting large investor base. So a lot of investors gives us a lot of inputs and a lot of good help, which it becomes. Our board is very well, there as an experts who are there to help me at every time. And as Vineet said, the team that you have, which where every expert is better than you in one or the other domain. So they themselves come with a lot of such expertise, which can actually generate such a big idea. So I think, as I said, learning is a everyday game, and everyone can teach you, and you can actually learn from every individual, maybe a selling associate at the front end. He at times teaches you a lot more than what you can learn from your mentors and from your coach. But those are some learnings, but otherwise, I think the ways of doing larger business, the way the position that you are in, the kind of need that is there from you as an organization, and what have to be delivered by you. I think we need to keep upgrading ourselves so that we don't end up our skill and our ability or our time or even the value for money, because our cost is different and our people's costs are different. So we should be able to make justice and create ROI for ourselves also. So and I agree to Nagesh's thought on sounding board. I think as good as what we want, even our team wants that sounding board, and we need to definitely give a real listening skill, or develop a listening skill, and really allocate a time so that we are able to listen to them. One is not for business or not for only transactions, but also for creating relationship, which is understanding what is going on in their life, what is troubling them, and what is bettering them, how is their family doing, or how are their sons doing, and what new habits are you developing. So I think you need to create, and that's how relationship gets developed. If you just talk business and you just want profitability to go up, it is never only business, it is only transaction.
Avnish, where do you go for advice?
I've got a more simpler answer to it. Not too many professionals who I may approach, but I think I don't have mentor, but I have a lot of mentors, and they come in the form of our customers. Because whenever we speak to them, being a very earthy traditional brand, when you understand, and they're like a mirror. So once you stand on the floors of your stores, we have a big store or a smaller store, whatever size, whatever product, whenever you're standing, the mirror that they show you, no professional, no consultant can tell you better than what your customers can say what's right and wrong with you. So if you spend a couple of hours on a Saturday and Sunday and on your floor and try to interact with at least sample set of 10 customers of various kinds, somebody who's walking out, somebody who's coming, sitting for a long time, not buying anything, I think they are the ones who tell you from everything that your service is good or bad, your product has this thing that is missing, your lighting is bad, your AC is not good, your store approach was bad, you had a better staff yesterday, why don't you have them today? I think they have been giving us so much in return. I think they are the best mentors, not just for me, for a lot of us, because somewhere we get so busy in our day to day as entrepreneurs, as professionals who are running our brands, somewhere we lose that earthiness with the customers, that how we used to a couple of years back stand and talk to them about everything. They used to start from their family to your brand. Today, because we are a 30-40-year-old brand, I have customers who come to me and stand and say, I was I was 16 year, I'm shopping from your brand. Today, I'm a grandmother to a 16-year. I'm still a shopper to you. Then I ask her, what is the change from that 16 to this 16? And when she starts the story, trust me, one is you have tear in your eyes, and second is you get a crazy mirror in front of you that tells you what you have been missing since so many years. So I think that's the real earning that we have as brands so old in the country. That makes us keeps going, so
sure. नागेश, इतना मजा आ रहा है डिस्कशन में, ऐसे लग रहा है मतलब बैठकर मैं विनीत से जैसे रेगुलरली बात करता हूँ वैसे ही हो रहा है, बीच में अवनीश से जैसे जनरल बात होती है. So much fun and it's going so well. Such great insights, great thoughts. मेरे को ही आज सीखने को बहुत मिला. I want to conclude this with any thoughts you have, if you want to just say a few words and a last question to our panelists or discuss something.
No, I think we already reached 7, so I don't want to ask any question. I just want to thank them for their support for the cause and thank them for the last 90 minutes. It's been just wonderful. I mean, people who know me know that I never make notes, but I filled 3 pages today. So it's amazing as to how much you can learn just sitting across. And like I said, people may call this a webinar. मेरे को तो लगता है सब दोस्त मिलके हम लोग chat कर रहे हैं, and then we are learning from each other.
Yes.
So it's a wonderful.
That's the idea. Interaction. Amazing. Very nice discussion. Great. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Vineet, for your support always. Thank you, Lalitji. Thanks you, Avnish. Thank you, Nagesh. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amitabh. Thank you, Nagesh. Good speaking to you, Lalitji. And thank you, Avnish.
Everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Bye.
Looking forward to seeing you guys. Thanks. Cheers.
Thank you.